Good morning. Welcome to this week's Coffee and Gold Dust. And you can also catch us on the YouTube channel, Bonnie DeGold / Coffee and Gold Dust. I know that this is a difficult time of year for a lot of people. Christmas is approaching. There's financial burdens. There's all kinds of different things. I don't know why, but there seems also like there's a lot of death this time of year for people in different circumstances and situations. And I want to talk this week about navigating through times of testing, through times of trials. And many times in this life we have to walk through tribulations and testings. And if you're one who's not going through something, praise the Lord, but it is only a matter of time before we will have ups and downs in our lives. In fact, the Bible tells us, beloved, don't be surprised at the fiery trials that you are going through, as if something strange has come upon you. And so we will experience trials and testings, things that will test our faith in these times of our lives. There's much going on in the world. Churches will go through testings. There'll be times of feast. There'll be times of famine. There'll be seasons. Families will go through testings. Our countries will go through times of testings. And there's seasons of blessing and there's seasons of famine. Times when it never feels good to go through testings, but the character of Christ is always built into us and proven into us through these things. And how can we navigate through times of testing? What does the Bible say about during times and seasons of testings? You know, when I was in school, we were all in school, we had to take a test sometimes. And that test was helpful to determine where we were at academically. Well, I think sometimes tests and trials help us to know where we are emotionally and where we are spiritually. And it's always good to take an account of where we are, so that we can grow and mature in Christ and in life. So God gives us much insight into how to navigate through times of testing. 1 Corinthians 3:13 says, each one's work will become clear, for the day of testing will declare it, because it will be revealed by fire, and fire will test each one's work. So our work, our walk in the nature of Christ, our destiny, our ministries that we go through, things that happen as we walk with God and we live our life for Him, there will be testings sometimes. So, and God always knows where we're at. He doesn't have to test us to see where we're at. But we sometimes need the tests to know where we're at. And that helps us to turn to Him, to reach into Him, and to grow. So the verse is saying your work, your actions, what you do for God, and what we're made of will come through clear during any times of testing. So fire testing is a good revealer of what we're at and what we're made of, and like I said, that's important. So first, this is not for the purpose of condemnation, but identifying what we may need help in, what needs to be shored up in. So it said, as we just read, if anyone's work endures, as we go on and read from our text out of 1 Corinthians 3:13. I'm going to go there for a second. All right. All right, I'm finally there. Okay. Each one's work will become clear, for the day will declare it, because it will be revealed by fire, and fire will test each one's work of what sort it is. And then verse 13 goes on to say, each one's work will become, 14 goes on to say, if anyone's work which he is built on, if it endures, he will receive a reward. If anyone's work is burned, he will suffer loss, but he himself will be saved, yet so as through fire. Do you know that you are the temple of God, and that the Spirit of God dwells in you? So, the Bible talks here about endurance. So endurance is the first key for us to navigate through testing, through trials. And what does that word endurance mean? It means to hold on, to persevere, tolerate, bearing and putting up with, standing firm, and not losing courage under pressure. If you're feeling a lot of pressure under the moment, the Lord is asking us to endure and not lose hope and quit. See, many times under pressure, we want to run, we want to give up, we want to stop showing up. If we don't endure, then we can lose the reward given to the faithful. And sometimes it will get darker and appear more bleak and hopeless right before the reward, right before the breakthrough. And so our endurance, we will never, without endurance, we won't make it to the end. See, we want our times of testing to be short, don't we? We want to do a short little sprint. But sometimes and oftentimes our testing is like a marathon through the valleys and through the mountains, through the swamps, through the deserts, through the mosquitoes and the crocodiles. So the Lord wants us to endure and to keep on pressing on. And He will give us the grace. He will give us the strength to do that if we reach into Him. The second way to navigate through times of testing is to keep a positive mindset. James 1 verse 2 says, consider it pure joy, my brothers, when you face trials of your faith. It says, consider it all joy. To consider means to stay on in continuous and careful thought regarding a particular thought or judgment that we might make. So we consider it with our mind. So he is saying, in the midst of trials, keep your joy on. Consider it all joy. Keep your joy on. Don't allow your joy to be robbed by wrong thinking and wrong mindsets. Because pure joy, God's joy, is a fruit of the Spirit. And it's the joy of the Lord. His supernatural joy that we can grab onto, that is our strength. And in His presence is fullness of joy. So we stay in His presence, we stay locked onto Him, and we don't allow our joy to be robbed. So we need to keep a positive attitude, a right attitude before him. Often in testing, we make this mistake of running from God instead of to God, and that never works. Because like I said, it's in his presence that we have fullness of joy. That joy that is needed to make it through. And that joy that strengthens us in the time of testing. He tells us, come, in John 15, to come and abide in him. He says, I abide in you and you in me, and I tell you this so that your joy might be full. So staying in fullness of joy means abiding in his presence. James goes on to say, testing is a blessing, because when the test is over, we will receive the crown of life, which has promised to those that love him. And what? And love endures, it says in 1 Corinthians 13. Love endures. So we keep going and we keep our joy on. And we consider and believe that God will bring a reward, a blessing. When our mind is set on him, we can not only endure through it, but we can do it with a proper and a good attitude and holding on to our joy. Okay. Navigation key number 3. James 1 tells us to remain steadfast when we're under a trial. God expects us to remain steadfast. The difference between steadfast and enduring, although they may seem like the same thing, are a bit different. Enduring is to endure means to not give up, where steadfastness is the quality of our walk during the time that we're enduring. So it's being resolutely and dutifully firm, to remain dependable, to keep doing the right thing and being faithful. Sometimes we can endure things, but are we enduring it well? Are we enduring it with the love of Christ in our heart, with the right attitude, without falling into sin during the trial? In fact, James also tells us that it is the testing of our faith that produces steadfastness within us. And that steadfastness would have a full effect within us, so that we may be made perfect and complete, lacking in nothing. Can we be trusted? Can we be trusted to walk in integrity even when the pressure's on? Can we be trusted to continue to follow Christ faithfully even though we're in the midst of a trial? Psalm 17:3, David said, "You have tried and tested my heart, and I have purposed that my mouth will not transgress." So that is key number 4 for navigating through times of trial and testing, that we would put a guard upon our lips. You know, Jesus is our greatest example. And when he went before Herod at the time of his crucifixion, there was a time when he stopped talking. When he stopped answering the barragement of questions that came at him, because the trial was so great that he knew it was wisdom at that point to put a guard on his lips. And that's exactly what he did. The Israelites, on the other hand, made a 7-day journey that turned into 40 years due to the sins of their mouth. And 1 Corinthians 10:10 refers to their journey, and it said, some of them complained and were destroyed by this destroyer. See, we're mostly most sorry, we are most likely to transgress with our mouth in the midst of a trial. And you know what? That makes the trial worse. Where it gives a legal right for the destroyer to come in and destroy, to wreak havoc, to make it worse. We know that the power of life and death is in the tongue, and what we speak, we will eat the fruit of. The word says a soothing tongue is a tree of life, but a perverse tongue crushes the spirit. Our own words can crush our own spirit and the spirit of others. Even David in Psalm 141:3 asked the Lord to set a guard over his mouth and to keep a watch over his lips. Proverbs 12 infers that we can be trapped by our own sinful talk. Proverbs 18, it says that our lips can be snares to our very lives. So I believe it's very important, if you were in the midst of a trial, to speak life about yourself, to speak life over your family, over your church, over one another, over our country. There's a spiritual principle here, and we don't want to give the enemy ammunition. And so put a guard over our lips and speak life, and so that God can do what he wants to do. Number 5 key to navigation through times and trials. The Bible tells us that we are to walk by faith and not by sight. Things in the natural may look bleak or sparse, but when we keep our eyes on God and on things of above, we learn, we lean not on our own understanding, but we acknowledge him in all our ways, and he will begin to direct our paths. So we need to keep on trusting him. We need to keep on knowing who he is. And it may feel like sometimes he's not there, but we walk by faith, not by what sight, not by what we experience or what we see. We are faith people. And the last key to navigating through times of testing is to draw close to God. Resist the enemy, and he will flee. Drawing close to God in the midst of a trial sometimes can be difficult, but because it does feel sometimes like he's not there. My dark night of the soul when I went through COVID and was on my deathbed, it felt like that. It felt like that, but I had to continue to resist the enemy and draw close to God. And so sometimes we can meditate on the word, meditate on the things, meditate on who he is. Be thankful even in the midst of the trial, because thankful primes the pump. And we go from there to praise, and from praise into worship, and worship always brings us into deep places of intimacy. We need to mix his word with faith and declare the promises. We resist the enemy by pulling down imaginations and reasonings and every lofty thing or thought that exalts itself against the knowledge of God. Our battlefield is primarily our mind, and it is fought and won there. And when we can resist him on that battleground, he will flee, because all he has is lies. And when we don't come into agreement with his lies, and we stay rooted in truth, that's when we can win the battle. The better we know God, the better we are able to face tests. We need to meet with him, pursue him eagerly, even when we don't feel like it. We need to press in to him, whether we're alone or whether we're with a group of believers. We are stronger together, and we need to not forsake the assembling of ourselves together as the end approaches, but encourage one another. What we do now, our response to trials, can make all the difference in navigating through them. We can see them as an opportunity to grow spiritually, or we can go into despair. 2 Corinthians 12:9 said he would glory in it, that Paul, the Apostle Paul, would glory in his infirmities, so that the power of Christ would rest upon him. See, we grow and mature in that place. So every test that we passed, every time we navigate trials well, we become what God has already called us, more than conquerors and more than overcomers. But more than anything, we need to know, whether we feel it or see it or not, that he is with us in the fiery furnace. And he is with us through every attack. And he has made a way of escape. And it's not time to abandon ship or to run from him, but to run through him. So we need to encourage ourselves. Encourage ourselves in the Lord. And we need to practically put some of these things in place so that we can make it through and navigate through any trial and testing that we're doing, that we can make it through to the other side and navigate it well. Well, we're going to look at this a little more. Tomorrow we're going to look at hope through trials and how to keep our hope on. And if you're going through something right now, just grab a hold of some of these biblical truths and apply them to your life, because God is a faithful God and his word is full of ways for us to maneuver through. Well, God bless you. We will see you tomorrow for more Coffee and Gold Dust.